Hi, I'm Meteorologist Tim Ealer. I'm here to give you an update on the latest severe weather threat for today and tomorrow, as well as the excessive rainfall outlook for heavy rain today. Potential of heavy rain exists all the way down from Atlanta up towards parts of South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, to Georgia, Louisiana, Tennessee, North Carolina. And right now we have showers and storms on the northern edge of this here. We have ongoing snow out here out west. And first we'll talk about the severe weather potential for today and tomorrow. Well, to start with, let's start out west here and move to the east with the current hazards, right? We have winter storm warnings here, freeze warnings, winter weather advisories, all up here out west where the heavy snow is still ongoing this morning, right? My oldest daughter lives out here and she sent me some videos of the snow starting to fall out there. Pretty wild. 2 days ago, it was 70 degrees, and it will warm up again quite quickly here in the next couple of days. This snow will be nothing more than a memory, at least in the Denver area, probably by tomorrow afternoon. So, quick hitting storm here will leave some snow in its wake. Got some storms out here in the Salt Lake City area, out west into the Oregon area. Wind advisory expires tomorrow. Up in the northern tier of the country here, we have winter freeze warnings, frost advisories here, excuse me, some flood warnings from ongoing snowmelt and excessive rainfall, and a few severe thunderstorm warnings and what looks like flash flood warnings for these persistent storms that are training across the same area here. And as we move further to the southeast, which is, of course, where I live, we have a flood watch. Interesting. We have a wind advisory up here in 2 counties in the Gatlinburg area. Crazy stuff. Um, if you remember, they had that really bad fire quite a few years ago now that destroyed a lot of the woodland area and like swept through Gatlinburg very quickly here. So the flood watch here for Georgia, okay, extends from Forsyth to Trenton, up to, well, let's just say up to northeast, far northeast Georgia, encompassing an area pretty much along a line from Hiwassee to Athens to Macon, just to the north of Macon, the northeast of Macon, um, to, Roberta, just north of Roberta, Butler, and Buena Vista, uh, Junction City. So quite a large area here. The expectation is we could have 2 to 4 inches of rain, even more. See what it says here, 4 inches or more possible. Convective rainfall. And because of the antecedent dry conditions, I know we had some rain lately, but the soil is still really dry. The rainfall, especially heavy rainfall, really intense rainfall, will run off too quickly to be absorbed in the soil. It could be some low-lying flooding concerns in the short term. River flooding is not anticipated here. It's more about, I think, the short-term flooding threat for just overwhelming the drainage systems in the urban areas, especially. So we'll see if they expand this or change this, but this is the current product right now for today. Yeah, I know what you're saying. You said I talk about severe weather first, but I decided to show the current hazards first and transition from that area where the showed the flood watch to the excessive rainfall outlook to highlight this. I just forgot to mention the hazards down in Tallahassee area, northern Florida here, and on the which interestingly enough, they have a fire weather watch along the northeast coastline of Florida here as well. And down here, heat advisory, crazy stuff. Let's see what this says here. Wow, heat index value is 111 to 116 today. Holy cow, man, that's hot. I didn't even know it was going to be that hot there, but high humidity values today. So, and heat index is that's incredible. Be careful you live out here. I may do a quick segment on this if I have time today. Anyway, I got off track. Excessive rainfall outlook here from Alabama back to Mississippi. Okay, up towards North Carolina, South Carolina here, with a marginal risk surrounding it. So the 15% yellow area indicates 15% chance of exceeding flash flooding guidance within 25 miles of a given location. And this is a 5% in the marginal area here. So moving on to severe weather. Whoops. All right. So um, we have this. This was upgraded yesterday. We have this enhanced risk from Mississippi to parts of Alabama, generally from Birmingham to Jackson, Mississippi. We have an enhanced risk right now. This is mostly driven by tornado risk, okay? And so yesterday morning, if you remember, we didn't have this, and it wasn't nearly as extended into Georgia, especially in the southern portion of it and the eastern extent here. And the marginal and slight risk, of course, extends into Atlanta area, Pine Bluff, Killeen, and all those areas here. So enhanced, what does that mean? It means you have a, enhanced risk. Okay, it's not really a percentage, so to speak, but this is a level 3 out of 5. So you have marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high. High is a magenta, and I think moderate is like the red. Okay. Now, they did talk about the possibility of upgrading this risk today in their last current discussion, right? Depending on how the atmosphere responds today and whether we get enough destabilization in this area here, especially if we get some supercell developing in this area as this front sights to the south here. Okay. So the key is we don't have a lot of, forcing, I guess you would say, at the mid levels to really like a short wave or something moving through. So you're relying on the atmosphere to respond. Okay. So we'll talk about that a little bit here next, but this is the overall threat. Now the tornado threat. So we have a very large area here of the chance of EF2 or higher tornadoes in this hatched area. So that encompasses this whole area here. Okay, that's what the hatch means, with the highest coverage expected in the yellow area. So that's 10%. Here, 5%. I can't draw too well. And here it's 2%. Okay, so when we look at this large area, yeah, the most coverage in the center here in the yellow, right? 10%. And then up reasonable max intensity EF2 or higher. All right. So then you get to the 5% tornado risk, less coverage, but still reasonable max intensity of EF2 or higher. Like max intensity probabilities, right? That's what the Storm Prediction Center thinks the atmosphere can do, right? So just to the south of this, you're within the 2% risk, okay? So even in the 2% risk here on the southern edge of this, you could have a EF2 tornado. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen everywhere else. And as you get further out here, of course, when you're 2% risk, think about it this way. I try to explain it, right? You have what you would say 2% risk, right? Let me change this here so it doesn't, so it takes a while to go off. 2%, so that's within 25 miles of a given location. 2% risk at an EF1 or below an EF2, right? Here within 25 miles of a given location. So you think about that percentage-wise, you have a 98% chance of it not being within 25 miles of a given location. So with that probability in mind, it's still within 25 miles. So if a tornado is within 25 miles of you, that doesn't mean it's going to hit your house. So your probabilities are even less. Okay. So don't freak out when you see these high probabilities here. Even on a 45% risk, if you think about it, you still have a 55% chance of nothing happening within 25 miles of a given location. So it's all about probabilities, right? And when we talk about tornadoes and intense ones, it's hard to get like a lot of tornadoes focused in the same area, spatial coverage, right? Because they tend to interfere with each other. Unless you get repeated rounds and you have all the perfect environment for supercells to just keep on, right? Even in a relatively, you have to have just the perfect conditions for just a high coverage tornado event with large spatial extent. So that's a little bit in the weeds there, but I wanted to explain that. I haven't really taken the time to do that, so I'm glad I did that. All right, moving on to the wind threat. The wind threat is the most expansive threat here, right? You see that because we have the 15% risk Mississippi, from Mississippi, Alabama, into Georgia, Louisiana, back towards Texas, and all the way back to the Texas-Mexico border, South Carolina, North Carolina here. So what does this mean? Same thing, right? 15% risk. But if you notice on the wind risk is 15%, right? Go to tornado risk with the yellow, 10%. So if I said 15% more for tornadoes, I meant 10% earlier. It's confusing when you look at the yellows between the two different products here. So this is a 10%. I was using 15% more as a reference here. So, I hope you understand. Sorry for the confusion there if I said it wrong, but it's hard to keep it all straight sometimes. And within this marginal risk, anywhere in here, you could have around 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. I wouldn't be surprised if they upgrade this somewhere in this area today to maybe a hatched risk like a SIG 1 or something, maybe 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts. As more confidence builds, if we get some stronger cells form here. So anyway, oops. All right, hail risk. Of course, the hail risk is maximized further out to the west. And why is that? Usually it's because steeper lapse rates and more favorable thermodynamic profiles in the atmosphere, drier air aloft, right? And so you have to have some of that drier air aloft to really get some steep lapse rates and have an extreme amount of lift necessary to do this, right? So you see where the hatched area is here. So what does that mean? You have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 2 inches diameter here in the hatched area. Okay, 2 inches diameter could really hurt you, so be mindful of that today. Anywhere else outside of that, you still have 15 and 5% risk, but in that area, it's only expected 1-inch hail stones here. So now we move into tomorrow for the severe threat. You see how it moves to the south here. This is encompassing, tomorrow's threat, like I said, and less chance of severe weather here. So you have a marginal risk. And that's, tomorrow afternoon in the evening hours, overnight hours, right? So there's a small tornado risk here, marginal risk, all the way from Pensacola up through southern Georgia and up along the Georgia coastline here and Panhandle as well, right? Just to the north of Jacksonville. Wind risk covers pretty much the whole risk area here, although it's only 5% also. Hail, not expecting any hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter here, although that can't be ruled out as well. So this is a portion of the forecast where I'm going to talk about the mid-level flow, future convective evolution, and any other parameters that might affect everyone here in the southeast today with the severe weather. All right. And we're starting off with this in the morning here, roughly around now Eastern time, 09 UTC. We have a broad trough up to the north here, a trough kind of digging down to the west here as well. All right. Okay, so that's going to swing through. And you have multiple, maybe little short waves moving through the flow here, right? But nothing very impactful right now. So what I mean by short wave is perturbations in the flow that may enhance convection here. 500 millibar flow moves, it generally lifts off the north and east. See the jet streak up here to the north. That's going to not really impact our sensible weather today in the southeast. It's more just an enhancement of the flow up here. Could it bring some heavy rainfall up here? Definitely. But we'll look at that convective evolution here as part of this. Northwesterly flow on the backside of this mid-level feature out to the west here will cut off eventually. And at least the way I saw it was it's going to kind of cut off and move back to the south and west here eventually. All right. So you see this flow is enhanced up here as well. This trough swings out to the east. You see how this almost cuts off right here. It's out of the flow pattern now, okay? So by now, you know, this is past the time when we get any convection going on. I just want to show you the evolution at 500 millibars mid-level flow here and what's going to be affecting our sensible weather. Now, 700 millibars, a little closer to the surface, right? And we'll start off about now. This is between 850 and 500, so this gives us a good idea about short waves and different perturbations in the flow. What happens here? You get a really ramping up of the low level jet here, and what this does is bring moisture into our area, right? And so you see the dew points here, okay? As we get into tomorrow, 70-degree dew points, you know, are high. The dew points are highest here in Alabama, Mississippi. But anything near 60 or above is sufficient for severe weather, right? So go all the way up into the northeast. You see this up here as well in the overnight hours. So you see a tongue of 65 plus and 60 anywhere in most of Georgia here, with the exception of this small area here. I'm not certain why that's there like that, but that's what it's showing. And this is the HREF, right? So the HREF combines all the convective available models that it has and makes a mean here. So a mean dew point around 65 is plenty for severe weather. Just wanted to show you that. And you see the cold front eventually moves to the south here, but it takes almost into the evening hours before it really starts pushing through here. You see where the dew points are still 60 even at the end of this Friday morning. So, right, so going a little bit lower in the atmosphere, let's go to 850. Okay, 850 is closer to the surface. You see this low-level jet is really cranking up here to the north as the surface low moves to the north, right? And you get what looks like maybe another secondary surface trough out to the west here. You see this flow increasing down to the south. This low-level jet ramping up into the overnight hours, okay? See, it really cranks up here. And we have this low-level flow this way, and maybe this trough pushing through here. See that right there or there? That could enhance the shear here. You see the flow on the backside of this is this way. This way, it's more like a trough. It's not really come back around like a closed low. More like, maybe more like this. You see what I'm talking about. So you get a little bit of turning here. You see that turning right here? Not really that curved, right? But we'll take a look at the photographs, but I just wanted to show you that with a low-level jet ramping up like that, you have an enhanced shear throughout the column, right? So you compare that to 850, right? 700, enhancement in the flow overnight. The shear values are pretty intense here. At 500, not so much, but you may get a trough maybe digging through here as well. That may enhance our convection tomorrow. So that's enough about that. I know you all want to know what's convective evolution going to look like and where's severe weather going to happen. So I'm going to focus on the southeast now, okay? All right, so we look at severe parameters. Let's look at surface-based CAPE, which is a good reflection of the CAPE at the lowest levels, potential energy. All right, so pretty paltry here down in the southeast. You see where we are, Middle Georgia, 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram. Not all the way impressive surface-based CAPE, right? Normally, I mean, in the overnight hours, that might be enough. But back to the west here, you see where the most CAPE is, meaning energy in the atmosphere at the lower levels, right? If you look the Updraft Helicity swath, you can see at this point where the rotating storms are. Okay, you move through the time with this. You see how they kind of overlap where the highest CAPE values are overnight into the morning. And those CAPE values really wane in the morning hours. All right, but if we go back to this, you see this evolve, and really wants to pop off some storms here ahead of this boundary that's setting up here, right? We have a boundary here. If you get these storms of fire in this environment, you can definitely have some problems here with tornadoes strong, okay? And you see what happens into the morning hours and where the CAPE values are. So let's look at most unstable CAPE values, which gives us a good idea of the most unstable parcel in the atmosphere. Still, you see here, not that impressive for central Georgia. Highest values up in northern Georgia here. It's pretty not atypical for it to do this and kind of get cut off here. I'm not, the meteorology behind it, I could spend days talking about it, but I see this time and time again here in central Georgia. The storms fire, you really get going on North Georgia, you move to the central Georgia, and they just die out before they get here. So, western Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi usually get the brunt of it for the most part. So, but the possibility is there. Helicity values, 0 to 3 kilometers. This gives us a good idea about rotational updrafts, right, and the possibility of them. When you get to the overnight hours, you see where these really pick up. And the parts of Alabama, Mississippi, okay, and this is where your best helicity value, updraft helicity swaths are, rotating storms greater than 75 meters squared per second squared, ensemble max. Okay, so max updraft helicity swaths here. All right. See that they fire about, 1900, 7, 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Rotating supercells, maybe to start with. More of a linear line segment moving to the south and east. The shear values, 0 to 3 kilometer shear values in this range are, more than sufficient for a slight threat of tornadoes here, right? So let's look at the 0 to 1 kilometer storm relative helicity values. This is helicity, meaning rotational energy, rotational, not energy, I guess you would say, winds in the atmosphere, right? You see where the highest ones are as well. In the southern edge of this, less coverage. Right on the boundary, of course, you have more storms firing up in the more rotating storms, but they're kind of all over top of each other. So having discrete cells is not as big of a thing here. So that's those parameters. Now let's look at the SPC outlook for the hail threat today. This gives you percentages on the map, right? So SPC guidance, 4-hour guidance here. This is a 4-hour intervals, okay? Hail, okay? So you're the biggest hail threat, 2% here. Then you have this bullseye here into Louisiana, okay? And that moves to the east into, not Louisiana, Mississippi, excuse me, and parts of Louisiana. That moves to the east overnight, and it shrinks really. Doesn't really get into Georgia very much here, except for maybe northwest Georgia with a small risk here, 2% in the other areas. So tornado, here's your risk, centered on Louisiana, at least early on. You see right here, 5 and 10%. This yellow area is centered in Louisiana, parts of Mississippi, all the way into northern Georgia here. During the overnight hours, moves further to the east. You got a bullseye here on the Mississippi-Alabama border, 10, 5, and 2% here. So quite a wide area here, right? Moves to this north, this moves and kind of wanes here with not a lot of probabilities. And you saw the updraft Helicity swaths, and we can put that on here, right? So you see why it's showing this. Greatest coverage here, coverage up here. Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana look to be in on it today, and North Georgia here. All right, tomorrow moves to the south and east. The severe threat is not 0 here in central Georgia, okay? But the biggest threat for tornadoes is back here, all right? Going back to wind. You see why there's such a wide wind area outlook here. This kind of, this really kind of duplicates or helps, I think, the SPC outline risk areas. So 5, 15, 2%, okay? Wind risk really, I wonder here, look at this area here in the morning hours. 30% is popping up here. Let's look at the helicity values with this. Doesn't show those at this point. I don't know why. It's weird. You see you get this bullseye here. I can't help but wonder if maybe the SPC is going to upgrade this outlook for wind. That's pretty impressive. 30% here. I wonder why they haven't upgraded. They may upgrade it at the 8 a.m., 9 a.m. update here. So highest wind threat, of course, is in Alabama, Mississippi. Kind of moves away from Louisiana, right? In the morning hours, moves to the south and east. See this marginal risk here in parts of central Georgia, all the way back into Alabama, Mississippi still in the morning hours. That moves to the south and east and wanes over time. Less of a risk here. So I'm not sure why I didn't display the updraft Helicity all the time on here, but anyway, that's it for that. So one of the things I'm going to go over next is the StormNet probabilities. I know this is a long video, but I want to compare products and see what it has to say about the severe weather outlook. So here's your hail risk from the StormNet open snow probabilities web page. Start off today. This morning, some hail risk, generally not that much, right? So you get through our time of interest here. 5 to 6 p.m. You see the hail threat ramping up here. Yeah, this is for 1-inch hail or greater in diameter, all the way up into mid-Atlantic, back towards Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and parts of Louisiana. That moves overnight hours. Maintains a little bit back out west here, maybe some storms form along the dry line. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Hail threat wanes as it goes further to the south, but not zero. And this hail threat ramps up again up here in the mid-Atlantic here as we get towards the afternoon hours. We'll have to see how that plays out here. And that moves out to sea there, offshore. Wind risk. Let's move this to our time of interest here. Maybe roughly, well, interesting. See these probabilities here in the next couple hours. 70-80% chance of winds exceeding 58 miles per hour, especially in the Huntsville, Alabama area, Chattanooga. Wow, okay. Looks like these storms kind of fizzle out, right? And then we get a re-intensification of this with the highest probabilities back towards parts of Mississippi, Alabama, right? Not much in Louisiana here, all right? Probabilities may close to 20-30% here. A wide area of winds possible exceeding 60 miles per hour. Even back towards Georgia, we have a pretty stout bullseye here, 20-30%. And some other areas up here in Virginia and North Carolina, and back in Louisiana, Mississippi as well. Overnight hours. Looks like you get a reinvigoration of this line here into Thursday, right? So we'll have to see what happens with this, how this evolves. So a couple different rounds of storms potentially here, and maybe another round of storms in the morning hours. So 2 or 3 rounds of storms here in this area. So pretty crazy stuff. Moving to the south and east, and maybe some reinvigoration of the convection that gets closer to the Florida coastline and up here in North Carolina as well. Here's your tornado threat for today from StormNet. All right, so this is the morning. We're getting into the evening and afternoon. Our greatest threat appears to be back here in southern Louisiana, parts of Mississippi here, between 6 and 7. These are probabilities. 10, 20, 30% here, centered on just north of Hattiesburg. Now, will this play out just like this? Probably not. This is a forecast, guys, okay? But I've found StormNet to be pretty reliable so far. So probabilities get less and move forward further to the south and the east here, and over time into the morning hours. The convection reinvigorates here with a small threat up here in the Atlanta area. We get into the overnight hours. Going to be some intense thunder and lightning somewhere here in the south overnight, okay? So be prepared to be woken up when this happens. The greatest tornado threat, as we showed in other products, kind of stays closer to the coastline here, okay? Likely where the greatest instability is, all right? Because we're going to have a little bit of trouble with instability in the atmosphere further north here. That moves to the south and east. And we get into the evening hours on the 7th, and we're done with it. So, wow, what a long forecast, guys. Appreciate y'all watching and trusting me for your forecast. I really enjoyed talking about this today, even though it's going to impact people's lives. And I I got a lot out of talking about this stuff. I really like to spread the word and make sure people are aware. Stay tuned to my channel for updates. I'll post them as much as I possibly can. Appreciate y'all watching. God bless y'all. Have a great day.